You may envision going out to a beautiful spot and scattering your loved one's remains. While this can be a beautiful ceremonial and very healing way of returning a loved one to nature, it can also be a disaster. The following guidelines will make the experience a positive one and make the final wish of your loved one, I just want my ashes to be scattered, come true. So to begin with, often the word ashes is used to describe cremated remains, and the media portrays it as a light ash. The reality is the remains are bone fragments that have been mechanically reduced, and they normally don't get gently flown into the air. It's more like heavy sand. So that being said, there's some dust or ash that can blow in the wind. And when scattering cremated remains, make sure you check the wind so they don't blow back in people's faces or onto a boat. You'll also want to consider the legal requirements to scatter remains. In no state is it legal to scatter remains on private property without permission from the property owner. And many parks also have rules and permit requirements, so you'll want to check into the requirements. If you do plan on scattering remains, many people are choosing to keep some of the remains in a keepsake container or a mini urn. And some people feel they still want a part of the person, and sharing the cremated remains is a way to still have a part of the person with you. Keep in mind, you'll want to make sure the partial remains are in a sealed plastic bag inside the keepsake or mini urn, and a funeral director can handle this for you. Many products are also available, such as diamonds that are made out of the remains, jewelry that is designed to hold the remains, or hand-blown glass or paperweights. There are also different techniques for scattering ashes. One is called casting, and this is a way of scattering where the remains are tossed into the wind. And as I mentioned earlier, you'll want to check the direction of the wind and cast the remains downwind. And most of the remains will fall to the ground, and some of the lighter particles will blow in the wind, forming a whitish-gray cloud. One person in the group may cast the remains or scatter some and hand the container to the next person, so everyone has a chance to ceremonially cast the remains. Another option is people are given paper cups or casting cups, and they cast simultaneously in a short toasting type gesture. Trenching is another technique, and that's where you basically dig a hole or trench in the ground, or sand, and the remains are placed into the trench. The remains can be placed directly into the trench or placed in a biodegradable bag or urn. And at the end of the ceremony, survivors often will rake over the trench. A deceased name can be drawn in the dirt or sand, or just perhaps inside the heart. The remains could also be placed inside this name, and the heart, written in the sand or in the dirt. You may consider taking a photo of this for a memory book. If done at the beach, it can be timed so that the tide comes in and sort of ceremoniously washes out, this name that you've written in the sand or in the dirt out to sea. And family and friends may want to join hands, form a circle. If it's not too windy, candles may also form a circle around the site. Candles are then given to each person as a keepsake. Raking is another technique, and this involves pouring the cremated remains from an urn evenly on loose soil and then raking them into the ground at the conclusion of the ceremony. And it's important to keep the urn close to the ground when pouring out the remains due to wind. And survivors may wish to take their turns raking the remains back onto the earth. If you choose to do this at a scattering garden, at a cemetery, this is how they'll perform the scattering. A green burial is done either at a green cemetery or at a traditional cemetery, and often cemeteries will allow you to place a biodegradable bag or biodegradable urn on top of a gravesite or a family member, as long as it's buried. And obviously you'll want to check with the cemetery and just see what their requirements are. Water scattering involves placing the remains into a body of water. A biodegradable bag or urn is recommended, and this is most often when cremated remains can blow back, sort of into the person's face or on a boat or wash up onto the side of the boat. So you want to be careful. Both experiences, that I just described, they can be traumatic and sort of not the everlasting peaceful memory that you envisioned. So, If you search on the internet or in the phone book, you can find people that have boats and are experienced in this. And there are urns on the market designed to gently float away and then quickly biodegrade in the water. Many people may throw flower petals or rose petals into the water after the urn. If the remains are in a biodegradable bag, they may sink, so you also may wish to throw a wreath of flowers into the water and watch the wreath drift away. Air scattering is another technique, and that's best performed by professional pilots or air services. The airplanes are specially designed to handle the cremated remains. Some professionals will arrange for family and friends to be on the ground, watching as the plane flies over, and a plume of the remains can be seen from the ground. And if survivors are not present, the service will provide the specific time and date of the aerial scattering. Often it can be arranged that close family and friends fly along. And while scattering cremated remains can be emotionally very difficult, hopefully by knowing your options and being informed, it will make this difficult time a bit easier. And if you are involved in this, chances are you're undergoing some serious grief. That's why I want you to visit transformgrief.com right now and start feeling better. I have tons of videos on the site that will help you start the healing process of overcoming your grief, finding acceptance, and reaching resolution on your loss. So check out transformgrief.com right now and start feeling better.